Hi everyone, welcome to 5 Minute Video Study for the NCE. Today we are going to cover clinical focus and we are in subtopic AV, marital partner communication problems. That is certainly a mouthful and it is something that you will likely see in the clinical field with couples as well as with individuals. What does that look like? What are some examples? With individuals, communication is one way of expressing your thoughts and ideas. And there's both verbal and nonverbal communications. When couples are struggling, separating, or divorcing, they often say that they have communication problems. But again, what does that mean? Communication issues can arise when people misunderstand or misinterpret each other, which may lead to tension or argument. Um, there is a want of communication or connection or expression of ideas, but then there are inhibiting factors that limit that expression. Communication may be a problem, but like with most problems, there's a solution. So, what are some common communication issues? One of them is silence. When a couple um, is not communicating, then that kind of creates a lot of wanting, but not a lot of action between that. The other thing is talking on repeat. Communication may openly talk a lot in details, but they may be going over things redundantly. Each partner may be able to predict exactly what the other one is saying, and they're just kind of regurgitating the same things over and over. The next example is defending and justifying. So this communication can be very harmful. It can, significantly damage the relationship, especially over time. If one or both individuals express concerns and the only response is denial or deflection, it's hard, if not impossible, to move forward. Couples in this situation will commonly feel like they've reached a dead end. So again, they're trying to say something, but then the other one is just kind of putting a wall there. And then the control or righteousness form of communication problems, that is um, living with someone and kind of learning their distinguishingness, as well as kind of that compromise. So you might, you know, one partner might feel like they have to have everything in order for them to relax. And then the other person might say, my way's better, which then kind of leads to a power struggle because you kind of have polar opposites ends. So there's that control factor. The other example is escalation and risk. So these are things that kind of snowball into yelling, name calling, harmful things, and over time it can really damage and separate these individuals. And then the other one is I'll change if you change. So this type of communication is when the partner is saying, you go first, and then they're kind of just putting themselves as kind of the guinea pigs. But again, that's kind of leading them on, because as soon as the other person has a hiccup or something happens, then they're just kind of putting themselves in a place where they say, "Oh well, I told you so." So those are just some of this of a common communication problems. But what do you do, right? In counseling and therapy, you have to look at, well, what are some behaviors that are more productive, more efficient? So just some of the things to consider is the notion of um, saying what you mean, looking at the problem as a problem without personalizing it. Also, picking the right time, understanding that during the day, one person may come home, they're tired, they're fatigued, and that just leads to a lot of emotional volatility. Own up to your own problems and communicating. So that's kind of accountability, right? When people become accountable, they're more likely to understand the other person as well as acknowledge their own issues. And then be a leader and tolerate vulnerability. So, Brene Brown talks about vulnerability and kind of putting yourself in the arena, and to me that really speaks to healthy relationships, right? We cannot lead if we're not going to place ourselves in vulnerable positions. We cannot have meaningful relationships if we're not willing to put in the effort. The other suggestion would be find common ground. We may not agree on everything, but let's figure out, a compromise that we can both live with. And then pick your battles. There are some things that may not be so significant. Learning to let things go or not get so caught up in the details that you lose sight of the big picture. Um, Communication struggles are normal, and that's something that should certainly be emphasized. And even experts struggle with communication sometimes, and that's something that individuals should keep in mind as a point of growth, not necessarily as an end all be all. So those are just some of the things to keep in mind with some of the communication issues.